Big step back, okay, just for anyone who might be confused. There's no check written out right now for $1 trillion. Sure. There's a major bar to clear. Just walk us through the targets that the board has now set for the CEO, Elon Musk.
Well, let's take a step back. 2018, I mean, those targets, everyone's like, there's no way Tesla would hit them, and they exceeded them. So, look, I think it just comes back to when it looks at robotics and you look at autonomous, I mean, this is the most important chapter, I think, in the history for Tesla. So you need Musk as a leader, as ultimately the key ingredient to get there. Look, you start to get to 3, 4, 5 trillion as a market cap, and also based on a lot of those sort of, targets to hit, I believe it's all on the table. I mean, these are not targets that are just ridiculous. Obviously extremely optimistic, but I think Tesla is going to be able to get there as they execute.
So let's talk about those targets. $1.5 trillion current market cap, going up to $8.5 trillion over the next 10 years. That's one of the requirements. And that comes with a transformation of what this company actually is. Can you describe what the ambition is and how feasible it is to get there in the current iteration of Tesla?
Sure. So look, I think more and more, I mean, this is an AI, it's an AI story going forward. And I think the reality is, like, when it comes to autonomous and robotaxi, cyber cabs, I think they're going to own 80% of the global market when it comes to autonomous. And I think that is sort of the future where, to put some numbers, let's say you're talking about 1.5 million, 2 million vehicles per year. Okay, you start to look at what they could ultimately do, 5, 6, 7 million when it comes to robots, when it comes to autonomous. I mean, look, from a physical AI perspective, the two most important companies in the world, it's NVIDIA and it's Tesla. And that's why this was important, because Musk is ultimately really going to be the key driver to get there. And I think investors recognize that 75% was a huge vote of confidence. And I think basically saying, like, you're our leader, lead us there.
The commentary from the leader was interesting when he said that he wanted a big enough ownership stake in Tesla to be comfortable that the robot army he was developing didn't fall into the right hands, but not so large that he couldn't be fired if he, quote, went crazy. Why couldn't other companies involved in AI and some of the technological transformation that could lead to robot armies make the same argument? Say, we need to be in control because we don't want it to fall into the wrong hands. No,
it's a great point. But look, there's only one Elon Musk. And I think there's a recognition, especially when it comes to XAI, where I think they're going to have, call it 15, 20% ownership. But eventually, I think XAI will be a part of Tesla. So Musk needs to have that 25% voting rights because it's his view. He needs to have control given the AI future. And look, we've seen things at OpenAI and others in terms of issues that they've had. But I think for Musk and for Tesla, this is an important chapter relative to where they think they're going next.
Dan, can we talk about what's going on right now? He sold only 750 vehicles for October in Europe, in Germany. That's less than half of what he sold last year. This is a very mature market compared to the U.S. How bleak is it out there right now for the EV demand?
Look, Europe is obvious. I mean, that continues to be just really a mini disaster for them relative to, from a demand perspective. Look, if you look globally, I mean, you had a very strong 3Q. I actually think there's stabilization that's happened across the board going into next year, 2 million vehicles. But the reality is, going forward, this is an AI story. I mean, you're focused on autonomous, you're focused on how many cities you're going to get into 30, 35 in the next, call it 6 to 9 months. When you actually have full-scale volume production of Optimus, that's the story here for Tesla. But it all starts with Musk. You need to make sure he's CEO for the next 5, 6, 7 years to get him there.
Is there concern that he's going to go flirt again with politics?
Look, and obviously, the back and forth that we've seen in politics, I think it just comes down to, like, he's learned, I think, a hard lesson in his Beltway stint. And I think the reality is that he's wartime CEO right now. And I think that is a recognition, whether it's Jensen at NVIDIA, whether it's Zuck at Meta, obviously Carp Palantir. It's an arms race that's happening. And that's why for Tesla, this is such an important part of the AI future.
Meta has the product right now, though. There is some key man risk, obviously, but they have the product.
Sure.
NVIDIA, key man risk, sure, but they have the product. What you're describing is a different situation. You're talking about key man risk, and we've yet to develop the product, which the whole valuation, almost 90% of it, ultimately hinges on. Yeah. Now, I know that you're super optimistic on the robotaxi business, but we're not there yet, are we?
But I think we're going to be sitting here 9, 12 months from now, and you're there. In other words, I think from a volume production perspective, this is something where cyber cabs, you're actually going to have volume production. I think regulatory, you're going to have much more on the federal side rather than the state, and that's going to be clear from I think a regulatory perspective. Look, and that's now the goal. You talk about $1 trillion. Now it's like the goal is like for Musk, step by step, brick by brick to get there. And I think he does. And I think this continues to be the most undervalued AI story in the market relative to, I think, how it's going to be viewed.
That's the $1 trillion man. Should we talk about the $1 billion man over at Wedbush? Congratulations.
Thank you.
ETF, I hear, has taken in $1 billion.
Yeah, so, took in over $1 billion and obviously, less than 5 months. And obviously, we've talked about in the show, I mean, our whole view on the ETF is just a true way to play AI in terms of the Ives ETF, the 30 names. And I think that's one where investors have, around the world showed confidence. So it's a huge success.
I've got you up 30% since inception earlier this summer. That's not bad.
Well, now that you actually mention it, look, I mean, look,
Outperforming the NASDAQ.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's obviously huge outperformance of the NASDAQ.
What kind of money is it attracting right now? Where's the cash coming from?
Look, I think
Retail,
78% retail, probably, a little more institutional that we're starting to see. But obviously being in Asia the last month, I mean, every country you see investors that own the Ives ETF. Because look, the reality is it's a way to play AI in the 30 names that we view in terms of chips, software, cybersecurity, and across the board.
Just quickly, what's the relationship between the stocks in your coverage as a sell-side analyst and the stocks that go into the ETF?
Yeah, I mean, there's a good amount of names that we cover that are in there, but there's a lot of names that we don't cover that are in there. And that, look, it speaks to my view is that this is going to continue to be an evolution in terms of the AI revolution. But those that say bubble, the haters, look, we are in. No, I'm saying, no. There's the haters.
Scanning around the whole room, to be honest with you.
But the reality is that we are in the second, third inning.
We're in the fourth.
Of this game, not in the fourth. And it continues to be 10:30 in the AI party that started at 9 p.m. and that goes to 4 a.m. The bears will watch it through the windows.